Have you ever noticed how, as a kid, the world feels like a series of clear-cut rules? Good guys win, bad guys lose, and if you're honest, things work out. But then, there's that one moment, that one summer, or that one specific realization where the floor drops out from under you. You realize that the boogeyman in the house down the street might not be a monster, and the hero in the suit might be the only person in the room who's actually losing. Most of us spend our lives trying to navigate the messy gray area between who we thought people were and who they actually are. That's the tension at the heart of To Kill a Mockingbird. Even though Harper Lee released this story over 60 years ago, it remains one of the most polarizing and essential pieces of literature because it forces us to ask, when the world is rigged against the truth, do you still bother to tell it? Imagine you're standing on a porch in a town where the heat is so thick, you can practically feel it sticking to your skin. This is Maycomb. On the surface, it's a sleepy, polite place where everyone knows your name. But underneath that southern charm is a rigid, invisible grid of social expectations. This brings us to our first big idea, the architecture of prejudice. In this book, Harper Lee isn't just showing us mean people. She's showing us a system. Think of Maycomb like a giant game of Tetris, where the pieces have been jammed into place for 100 years. If you're a Finch, you're at the top. If you're an Ewell, you're at the bottom. And if you're black, like Tom Robinson, you aren't even on the board. The tragedy of the story isn't just a single bad act. It's the way the town's entire social structure is designed to protect a lie rather than face an uncomfortable truth. We see this today in our own Maycombs, those social circles or online echo chambers where we value belonging to the group more than we value the actual facts. Visualize a small, fragile bird landing on a fence. It doesn't eat your garden. It doesn't nest in your attic. It just sings. This is the central metaphor that gives the book its name. To kill a mockingbird is a sin because the bird is innocent. But Harper Lee applies this to people. Throughout the narrative, we see characters like Boo Radley and Tom Robinson, who are essentially the mockingbirds of their society. They provide value, or they simply exist without causing harm. Yet the hunters of the world, the gossips, the racists, and the fearful feel the need to destroy them. This lesson is about the vulnerability of innocence. It asks us to look at our own lives and identify who the mockingbirds are in our modern world. Who are the people who are being targeted, not because they did something wrong, but because they are easy targets? This book suggests that the ultimate test of a civilization is how it treats those who have no power to fight back. Now, let's talk about the most famous piece of advice in literary history, the idea of walking in someone else's shoes. Atticus Finch tells his daughter, Scout, that you never really understand a person until you climb into their skin and walk around in it. It sounds like a Hallmark card, but in the context of this book, it's actually a radical, dangerous act. Imagine you're a child looking at a house that everyone says is haunted. You're terrified of the man inside because of the stories you've heard. To walk in his shoes means you have to abandon your fear and your neighborhood's favorite ghost stories. Harper Lee uses the character of Scout to show us that empathy isn't a feeling, it's a skill. It's the ability to look at your enemy or the weirdo next door and realize they have a mother, a fear of the dark, and a reason for their silence. In a world of 280 character callouts and instant judgments, this book reminds us that we are almost always missing 90% of someone else's story. This leads us to the most crushing realization of the book: the courage to lose. Usually we like stories where the underdog wins. We want the Rocky Balboa moment, where the hero stands tall at the end. But Atticus Finch knows from page 1 that he is going to lose the trial of Tom Robinson. He knows the jury won't look at the evidence because they can't see past their own skin color. So why do it? Harper Lee defines courage not as a man with a gun, but as when you know you're licked. Before you begin, but you begin anyway, and you see it through, no matter what. This turns the entire concept of success on its head. In our productivity-obsessed culture, we're taught that if something isn't going to work, it's a waste of time. But this book argues that some battles are worth losing. The win isn't the verdict. The win is the fact that you forced the world to look at the truth, even if they chose to blink. But we have to be honest and look at this book through a modern lens, because this is where the critique gets interesting. For decades, To Kill a Mockingbird was held up as the ultimate anti-racist manual. However, if we look at it today, there's a valid argument that the book has a white savior problem. Tom Robinson, the man on trial, is a secondary character in his own tragedy. He is a catalyst for Scout's growth and Atticus's moral stand, but we don't get to see his inner life, his dreams, or his perspective in the same way we see the Finch family. Harper Lee wrote this from the perspective of a white girl in the South, and while that makes the story relatable to a wide audience, it also limits the scope. Some critics argue that by focusing so much on Atticus's nobility, the book accidentally makes the struggle for justice look like a hobby for virtuous white people rather than a life-or-death necessity for the Black community. It's a safe way to talk about a dangerous subject. Does this mean the book is bad? No, but it means we have to read it as a starting point, not the finish line. It's a snapshot of a specific perspective from 1960. And it's okay to acknowledge that while Atticus is a hero, he's also a man operating within a system he doesn't fully want to dismantle. He just wants to make it fairer. So, what is the final verdict? Is To Kill a Mockingbird still worth your time? Or is it a relic of a bygone era? I believe it's more relevant now than ever, but for a different reason than you might think. We live in a time of extreme polarization. We are all living in our own versions of Maycomb, convinced that the people on the other side of the street are monsters. This book challenges us to do the hardest thing possible, to be the person who stands in the middle. It challenges us to be the person who, like Atticus, is willing to be called names by their own neighbors because they refuse to join a lynch mob. It's a book for anyone who feels like the world is losing its mind and wants to know how to keep their soul intact. If you want an actionable step to take away from Harper Lee's masterpiece today, try this, the perspective audit. Identify one person in your life. Maybe it's a neighbor with a political sign you hate, or a coworker who drives you crazy. And spend 5 minutes trying to construct the most sympathetic version of their life story. Don't judge them. Just try to walk around in their skin for a moment. You don't have to agree with them, and you don't have to like them. But if you can see them as a human being instead of a caricature, you have just done the very thing that the people of Maycomb couldn't do. You've protected a mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird reminds us that growing up isn't about getting older. It's about the moment you realize that the world is complicated, unfair, and beautiful all at once. It's about the decision to stay kind even when you're tired, and to stay honest even when it costs you. Whether you're reading it for the first time or the 10th, there is always a new layer of dust to kick up in Maycomb. Thanks for watching and diving deep into this classic with me. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to keep exploring the big ideas behind the world's most influential books, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next episode. We've got a lot more stories to uncover, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. See you in the next one.